Gracious God, may the words of my mouth, may the meditations of our hearts, our minds, even our spirits, may these be acceptable in your sight, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Well, this has never happened here, not at the Church by the Sea. Well, that's not 100% true. It did happen once, many years ago. Carol Grimm, I'm sure, remembers. But this is not that story. This is Mary Luty's story, a clergy colleague of mine from Boston who was performing a baptism recently. And while the whole congregation was in high expectation, 8 members of the family had encircled the baptismal font on the chancel. It was discovered that the baptismal font was empty, bone dry. Somebody forgot the water. The sexton, who normally filled the font with water, had forgotten, because he was too busy calming down the custodian who had found a dead mouse in the bathroom next to the sanctuary. The custodian, mind you, was not afraid of the dead mouse, but was very afraid of the chairperson from the property committee, who was more of a tyrant and not likely to understand the situation. The head deacon had forgotten because he had been late to church, trying to wrangle his 3 young children out of bed and out of the door in at least relatively clean clothes, and had gotten engaged in an unexpected but lengthy debate about whether they could bring their scooters to worship. The pastor forgot because she'd been tied up with a parishioner who needed to talk immediately before worship because someone had removed a chair from the parlor and not put it back. She thought this deserved an announcement from the pulpit. The family, well, they didn't remember about the water because it's not their job. They were the family. But when they stepped in front of that font, they were the first to see and proclaim, in an octave only one less than a streak, and loud enough for everyone in the congregation to hear, there is no water. An uncomfortable and very un-New England-like giggle arose from the congregation. The pastor immediately introduced a hymn which was not in the bulletin, catching the organist and the choir off guard as they scrambled to find the page. And she motioned for the associate minister to just go get the water. By the end of the hymn, the water was back. It had been returned to its rightful place. Promises were made, a child was baptized, and was equipped to become a disciple of Christ. And that, I'm sure you recognize, is life in a nutshell. Exactly. We forget water. Of course, doing so during a baptism, now that's just a small embarrassment, a little inconvenient, but forgetting water in the course of our day-to-day lives, it's more tragic than that. It's tragic because our ability to be a disciple, to create peace, to offer compassion, to have the endurance necessary to build bridges rather than bitterness across the divides of difference in our lives and in this world. It depends, as baptism does, on our ability to be hydrated in the holy, steeped in the Spirit and presence of God. God, for whom nothing is impossible, and without whom everything is a struggle. Now, the good news about this story is that that Spirit, the living water of God's presence, it surrounds us everywhere, all the time. The bad news is we forget. We forget, like those in the story, about the water of God's Spirit. We forget to lap it up with our bare hands, to carry it with us, to have it drip baptismal-like down our foreheads where it can fill our heart and saturate our soul. And because we forget, as it was in the story of the waterless baptism, life gets in our way. Life pulls at us this way and that, constantly, with countless needs and demands of our family, with fears and concerns for our job. We are pulled in what we think others will think of us. We are filled with petty concerns and offenses that we make mountain-like until it is impossible for us to see or to think about, and certainly to immerse ourselves into the water of God's Spirit. And because we forget, that leads us to live lives reflective of a spiritual dryness. A spiritual dryness. Dehydrated of God's Spirit. Our decisions, our lives, our actions, they lack compassion. And they lack patience. It makes us quicker to judge than we are to love. It gives fear a stronger hold upon our heart when we are dehydrated of spirit. When that happens, what we need is a good soak. A good soak in the Spirit of God. When that happens, we need to remember to go get the water. No matter how inconvenient it may be at that time, no matter how embarrassing it may be, no matter whether we think we have the time or whatever it is that we're in the middle of, perhaps an argument, perhaps dinner, a business deal, a baptism, we just need to stop and go get the water. Sing a hymn of praise. For only sprinkled with that water can we truly be disciples and live lives reflective of God's love. Only so sprinkled can we make and fulfill the baptismal promises that we make one another. The baptismal promises we make are these. We promise to welcome others, no matter who they are or where they are on life's journey. We promise to be like family to and surround others with God's kind of love, total and unconditional. We promise to help them grow as we commit ourselves to grow into a closer reflection of Christ. Promises like that, in baptism, in life, they require water. They require God's help. They require that we stay hydrated in the Holy, steeped in the Spirit. So you are in the right place this morning. Because here, among one another, immersed in the care and the love of this community, God's Spirit flows. And when you can't make it here, don't forget that God's Spirit, like water, is everywhere. To help you remember and lap that water up onto your forehead, into your heart, and into your life. I offer you this morning a pitcher-like prayer to help you gather that water, wherever you may be, whatever is happening. The prayer is this: Holy God, I'm ready. I'm ready to let the water of your Spirit wash over me, to redeem me, to redirect me, to fill me, that I may fill another. That picture prayer is on a card in the back of the sanctuary. so that the water you receive here can travel with you after the service, wherever you go, whenever you feel dehydrated. Pull out the pitcher. Amen.